So Sherrie Laryse has spent her life exploring what it truly means to be human, not just through study, but through lived experience and deep reflection. Sherrie Laryse's work spans trauma, healing and emotional landscape we all navigate through her writing, her teachings and the way she shows up in the world. She helps people come home to themselves. She's an author of 2 books, On Path and The Body Talks. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Sherrie Laryse.
Hello. So I have a corporate background. I have a massive love of Excel spreadsheets. I have a degree in neuroscience. I'm partway through a degree in psychological anthropology. And the reason why I want to say all of this up front is because I would love to build a profile of me in your head as a rational person. Because where I'm going isn't necessarily rational. So I would love you to hear this for what it is, which was a very real experience. I'm also a meditator. I've been meditating for a couple of decades. I practice and I teach. And it was a meditation style that evolved for me organically amidst a health crisis that introduced me to my unexpected teacher. And my health crisis began when one of my lungs collapsed. And over the following days, it reinflated, and then sometime later, it collapsed again. And it did this a few times. And this is a known problem in tall teenage males. And as a short, middle-aged female, the doctors couldn't explain it. So without any logical medical explanation, I wondered if the cause might be psychosomatic, if it might be emotional. And we know that emotions are not just something that happens in the mind. Emotions happen in the body. And effective neuroscience is the study of the physiological aspect of emotions. And I wondered if I could use meditation to investigate that. And my meditations, they're vivid. So if you're a vivid dreamer, you'll know what I mean. If you know somebody who has vivid dreams and the next day they can tell you about their dream in full sensory detail of what it looked like, what it smelled like, what it felt like, as if they really lived it, even though it only happened in their head. My meditations are like that. So I wanted to try it. And so I sat down one day and I imagined dropping my awareness down into my lung so I could inquire from the inside. And I was open to any feeling that came over me, anything, any memory that flooded in, any thought, anything. And I was in my meditation for quite some time before anything did happen. But when it did, it came in the form of a very soft crying within the meditation. And I figuratively turned my attention to the direction of the crying, and it became louder and louder. And it was a sobbing. And I get an image of a girl sitting on the floor, legs bent, with her arm around her shins and her head bowed into her knees. And I realised this is grief. This is unprocessed grief. And so I did what I would do if I was comforting anybody who was grieving. I went over, I sat next to her, I put my hand on her back. I didn't say anything, she didn't say anything, she just kept sobbing. And I stayed there with her for quite a while before I really needed to get on with my day. And so I said to her, is it okay if I come back and I visit you another time? And before I left, I set her up with a box of tissues, a block of chocolate, some salt and vinegar chips, and some Thai food. Everything to keep her going until I got back. And I went back to visit her the next day. And the next day, and the next day, and every time I would go back to visit grief, her behaviour would change slightly. So first she stopped crying. Then one day she lifted her head and she looked me in the eye. One time she thanked me for acknowledging that she was there. So I was building this relationship with grief, all within my head, and yet so beneficial emotionally. The effect it had on me was very real. So I was very surprised the next time my lung collapsed, and I knew what I had to do. I needed to go straight back and ask grief if she had anything to do with this. So the first opportunity I had, I dropped down into my meditation. And as soon as I got there, I had a visual of grief with her two hands up against the ceiling of my lung, trying to hold it up as it sagged around both hands. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, if you're the one holding it up, you are not the one pulling it down. And even after I ended up in the emergency ward having lung surgery, I never found out what the cause was. But I do appreciate the whole experience as a gift that introduced me to my grief and allowed me to understand myself in a deeper way and connect with different aspects of myself that I didn't know it was possible to connect with. So one day I wanted to ask grief a question, and it was a stupid question, and I knew that because I wanted to ask her how she was feeling. Obviously that's stupid because she's grief. She's grieving. But I asked her anyway. And she paused, as if she was deeply contemplating the question. And then she smiled at me and she said, "I feel safe." Her answer blew my little mind apart, because I had always imagined emotions as being one-dimensional. I thought grief would always feel like grief. I thought happiness would always be happy, and I thought anger would always be angry, and I knew they worked together, but I thought they were quite compartmentalised and distinct from each other. So I needed her to explain this to me. And I said to grief, "How is it that you are grief and yet you feel other emotions?" And I wrote down her answer as she said it to me in the meditation. So I'm going to read it for you word for word because I want to get it right. So this was her reply. "Well, when I was younger, I expressed grief differently than how I do now. I went through my own developmental stages just like you did. I learned to self-soothe in some instances. In other instances, I was forced to shut up. That made me angry." I needed her to clarify. "You mean it made you angry, or was anger there with you?" "Well, anger was here with me, but just like you were influenced by the people you spend time with, so am I. You pick up others' habits and traits, and you become a little bit like those people you spend the most time with. I learned how to feel anger myself." So I am calling it that we have emotions all wrong. And I appreciate that I am basing this on a conversation that I had with grief. I get that. But my question is, how else should we be trying to understand emotions other than getting to know them? I did a neuroscience degree trying to come closer to that truth. But that was not what helped me to understand how emotions function in the body, nor what they need so we can feel a sense of peace and acceptance with our life just the way it is. Grief taught me that. Grief taught me that emotions have feelings, and all emotions just want to be felt for what they are. They want to feel seen and heard and valued as a part of who you are. And they want to feel safe in this body, which is their home. Not shut down or dismissed or buried as unwanted or unnecessary. They're necessary. They are the reason you feel anything at all. And emotions have a lot that they can teach us about how we can move forward with our life if we can just listen to them and become present to them. And it's not with the intention of fixing them or changing them into something that we like. It's to get to know them so we may like them. And I do understand that just the concept of meeting our darkest and hairiest emotions can seem like it might be some overwhelming experience. But my experience of meeting grief was not some sad event of me wallowing in my own grief. I was meeting grief as its own entity, with her own personality and her own feelings and her own needs, and it was not about me at that point. I was there to comfort grief, and I was there to meet her needs. And in doing so, that was how we were able to build such a strong relationship, to the point where I now find comfort in the company of grief. And I dare say we can build that relationship with all of our emotions, because there are no good emotions and bad emotions. There are just emotions, a whole array of them, and they all have something to teach us. What I have found to be true is that whenever I have needed clarity and answers in my life on how to move forward, while other people will give me their advice based on their knowledge and their life experience and their best intentions, the best clarity and guidance that I get from my life has always come from within. They have always been my best teachers. So that is why I'm very passionate about sharing this story, and I really want to normalise these internal relationships, so when the need grabs you, you might feel comfortable to try this too.
That was an ideal story. I think you were listening. See how important listening is? I was listening to words. You've been listening to your body. So Sherrie has her book here tonight, and at half time, if anyone wants to talk to her about a book or learn more, she'll be up the front here. But thank you for sharing your story. That was beautifully told. I really enjoyed it, and I know everyone else did. Thank you.